The coffee shop buzzed with the sound of conversations and the hiss of the espresso machine. It was an ordinary morning, or so it seemed. A young man in his mid-20s sat at the corner table, his gaze fixed on the steam rising from his cup. His name was Jake. He had been coming to this cafe for months, hoping to find something, peace, purpose, or maybe just a little direction in the chaos of his life. But that morning, something was different. As he sipped his coffee, his eyes fell on the cop standing in line at the counter. Officer Harrison, a middle-aged man in a worn-out uniform, his face weathered by years of serving on the force, was waiting for his coffee, his shoulders slumped as if the weight of the world rested on him. There was something about the officer's presence that intrigued Jake. He saw the exhaustion in his eyes, the silent toll that wearing a badge for so long had taken. Without thinking, Jake stood up, walked over, and bought the officer's coffee. "On me," Jake said, handing over the steaming cup. "Thank you for your service." The officer's eyes met Jake's. For a brief moment, the world seemed to stop. But what happened next would change both their lives forever. Jake had always been the kind of person who tried to do the right thing, but life hadn't been kind to him. Raised in a broken home, he learned early that people weren't always reliable. His father left when he was just a toddler, and his mother struggled to make ends meet. There was never enough money, never enough support, and Jake grew up learning to fend for himself. High school had been a blur, marked by fleeting friendships and unfulfilled promises. At 22, Jake found himself stuck in a rut. He had dropped out of college after a year, unsure of what he wanted to do with his life. His part-time job at a small bookstore didn't pay enough to cover his bills, and he found himself questioning everything: his future, his purpose, his place in the world. The only thing he had left was a strong desire to make a difference, even if it meant doing so in small, unnoticed ways. He spent his days looking for meaning in the mundane, trying to connect with the world in a way that felt real. But more often than not, he felt like a ghost, drifting from one day to the next, hoping for something to break the cycle. It was on one of these aimless mornings, when the world felt especially heavy, that Jake stepped into the cafe. He didn't expect anything to change, not really. He just wanted a hot cup of coffee to help him wake up. He had no idea that buying that coffee for Officer Harrison would set in motion a chain of events that would challenge everything he thought he knew about himself, about people, and about the world. After Jake bought the coffee, Officer Harrison's expression softened. It wasn't the typical indifference Jake had come to expect from people in uniform. There was gratitude in the officer's eyes, but also something more, something Jake couldn't quite place. Harrison nodded in appreciation, but said nothing. It was as if Jake's simple act of kindness had triggered something deep within him, something he had long buried beneath the surface. For the next few minutes, the officer sat down at a table near Jake, his coffee in hand. He didn't make a move to leave, even though the cafe was slowly filling up with people on their way to work. Jake watched him, trying to figure out what had just happened. Was the officer going to thank him? Was he going to say something to acknowledge the gesture? But Harrison stayed silent, staring into his cup like he was lost in thought. Then, after what felt like an eternity, the officer finally spoke. "I don't know why you did it," Harrison began, his voice hoarse. "But I'm not used to people being kind to me. Most days, people see me as just a uniform. They don't care about the person behind it." Jake was taken aback. He hadn't expected this conversation to go so deep, so quickly. He had only wanted to do something nice, something small. But now, here was this officer, sharing a piece of himself that most people never saw. "I'm just a guy trying to make it through another day," Harrison continued, his eyes now meeting Jake's with an intensity that made the young man shift in his seat. "Sometimes, it feels like I'm invisible, like I'm not even human anymore. And that's a hard thing to live with." Jake felt the weight of Harrison's words sink in. It was the first time he realized that kindness wasn't just about making someone feel good. It was about acknowledging their humanity, their struggles, and their pain. But as the conversation continued, Jake started to feel uneasy. There was something more at play here, something that neither of them had anticipated. Harrison's story was far from over. As the conversation unfolded, Jake learned more about Officer Harrison's life. The man who had once been full of hope and idealism had slowly become hardened by years of policing in a city that seemed to be sinking into chaos. Harrison had started his career with a passion for justice, a desire to make the world a safer place. But over the years, the job had chipped away at his spirit. He had seen too much violence, too much pain, too many lives torn apart by circumstances beyond their control. The constant stress and the never-ending cycle of crime had left him weary and detached. Harrison spoke of the days when he was younger, when he believed that his work made a difference. He told Jake about his family, his wife, who had left him after years of tension, unable to cope with the emotional toll his job had taken on him. His son, who had grown distant, unsure how to connect with a father who was always absent, emotionally and physically. Some days, Harrison said quietly, I don't know if I can keep doing this. It's like I'm wearing this mask every day, pretending everything's okay. But it's not. And the worst part, I can't even talk to anyone about it. They all expect me to be strong, to be the hero. But I'm just tired. And I'm scared, Jake. Scared of losing myself entirely. Jake's heart ached as he listened to the officer's words. He had never considered the emotional toll of being a police officer. The loneliness, the isolation, the constant battle between duty and personal pain. Harrison wasn't just a cop. He was a man, a human being struggling with his own demons. It was then that Jake realized just how profound his small act of kindness had been. He hadn't just bought a coffee. He had seen Harrison. He had acknowledged his humanity in a way that no one else had in years. But just as Jake was about to speak, to offer some comforting words, the officer's phone rang, interrupting the moment. "Duty calls," Harrison muttered, standing up. He looked at Jake, his eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and something deeper. "You've made a difference today. You'll never know how much." Later that afternoon, as Jake was heading home from work, he received a message on his phone. It was from Officer Harrison. "Jake, I just wanted to thank you again for the coffee. I've been thinking about our conversation all day. You probably don't realize this, but you changed something in me today. I don't know if I'll ever be able to repay you, but I want to try." The message left Jake speechless. What had started as a simple act of kindness had opened something inside Harrison, a door that had been locked for so long. The officer had acknowledged his struggles, something no one had ever done before, and it had made a world of difference. Jake's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a phone call. "Jake, this is Officer Harrison," came the voice on the other end. "I know this might sound strange, but I wanted to offer you something. I've been thinking about what you said, about how people need to be seen. I'm trying to be more open, more real with the people I meet, and I think you deserve a chance. I'm offering you a job, part-time, helping with community outreach programs. I want to give you the opportunity to make a difference, just like you made a difference for me." Jake couldn't believe his ears. He had no idea what to say, but the emotions that flooded him were overwhelming. The officer's simple words had just opened a door to a new path, one that Jake had never even imagined. In the months that followed, Jake worked alongside Officer Harrison in the community outreach program. He helped organize events, speak to local residents, and build bridges between the police department and the community. What started as a chance encounter at a coffee shop blossomed into a partnership that changed both of their lives. Harrison, no longer weighed down by the emotional burden of his job, began to heal. He reconnected with his son, mended his broken relationships, and rediscovered his passion for helping others. Jake, who had once felt lost and directionless, found purpose in his work. He wasn't just another young man drifting through life. He was part of something bigger. Together, they made a difference, not just in the community, but in each other's lives. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Sometimes, the smallest act of kindness can create the biggest ripple effects. What would happen if you took a moment to show someone that they matter? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation going. And if you want to hear more inspiring stories about how small gestures can change lives, hit that notification bell. Thank you for watching, and remember, kindness has the power to change everything. You might not always see the results, but it always makes a difference.